the shadow of ziggurats where the first great stories had been told and retold until they achieved immortal form, humanity's literary heritage stood complete, a treasure of wisdom that would enrich human understanding until the end of time. But empires fade, cities crumble, and even the mightiest achievements of human civilization can disappear beneath the patient accumulation of sand and time, waiting in darkness for voices that will call them back to light. This is the story of how Mesopotamia was lost and how it was found again. The last cuneiform tablet was pressed into clay in a temple school in Babylon, 1700 years after Christ. The scribe who shaped those final wedge marks could not have known he was ending a tradition that had preserved human thought for over 4,000 years, that with his death, the ability to read the literature of Gilgamesh, the laws of Hammurabi, and the hymns of Enheduanna would vanish from the earth as completely as if it had never existed. The great cities gradually emptied as political power shifted to new capitals, as trade routes changed course, as the irrigation systems that had sustained urban life for millennia fell into disrepair. The Euphrates and Tigris, no longer controlled by engineering that had seemed permanent, resumed their natural meandering across the Mesopotamian plain, leaving behind the greatest cities in human history like islands, slowly sinking beneath rising tides of abandonment. Babylon, which had given its name to empires and inspired legends that would echo through scripture and literature, became a quarry where local builders scavenged bricks from palaces that had housed the wisdom of ages. The great ziggurat that had seemed to challenge heaven itself served as a source of building materials for humble structures that would themselves disappear within generations, leaving no trace that humanity's most ambitious architecture had ever existed. The libraries that had preserved the accumulated knowledge of civilizations crumbled as their mud brick walls dissolved under rain and sun. Thousands of cuneiform tablets, each containing literature, history, scientific observations, or legal codes that had shaped human development, became anonymous sherds scattered across archaeological sites that would remain buried for over 1,000 years. By the time European travelers began exploring the Middle East in search of biblical sites and classical antiquities, the location of Babylon itself had become uncertain. Massive tells, artificial hills created by millennia of urban occupation, dotted the Iraqi landscape, but no one could identify which mound concealed which ancient city. The civilization that had created writing, law, literature, and urban life had become as mysterious as if it had never existed. The rediscovery began with broken clay tablets that Bedouin tribesmen found while digging foundations for their desert camps. These mysterious objects, covered with strange markings that no living person could read, were sold in Baghdad markets to curious collectors who recognized their antiquity without understanding their significance. Some found their way to European museums, where scholars puzzled over inscriptions that seemed to represent some unknown form of writing. The breakthrough came in the 1840s, when British and French archaeologists began systematic excavations at sites throughout Mesopotamia. Austin Henry Layard's work at Nineveh uncovered the great library of Ashurbanipal, revealing thousands of cuneiform tablets that would eventually prove to contain the masterpieces of Mesopotamian literature, alongside administrative records that documented the daily life of ancient empires. But the tablets remained as mysterious as ever, until scholars learned to decipher the cuneiform writing system itself. The Rosetta Stone had provided the key to Egyptian hieroglyphs, but no equivalent bilingual text existed for cuneiform. Decipherment required patient analysis of thousands of inscriptions, gradual recognition of patterns, and brilliant linguistic detective work that slowly revealed the structure of languages that had been dead for over a millennium. The moment when cuneiform tablets began to speak again was one of the most dramatic in archaeological history. Henry Rawlinson's decipherment of the Behistun inscription in Iran provided the key that unlocked Old Persian cuneiform, which led to understanding of Akkadian, which eventually enabled scholars to read Sumerian, the world's first written language, preserved only in the clay tablets that had survived Mesopotamia's collapse. Suddenly, the voices of Mesopotamian civilization could be heard across 3,000 years of silence. Gilgamesh's quest for immortality, preserved on tablets from Ashurbanipal's library, revealed literature more sophisticated than anything scholars had expected from such ancient sources. Hammurabi's law code, inscribed on its basalt stele, demonstrated legal thinking that had influenced justice systems throughout the civilized world. The personal letters between merchants, the school exercises of student scribes, the administrative records that tracked the daily operations of ancient cities, all began to reveal intimate details of lives lived 5,000 years ago that seemed remarkably familiar to contemporary readers. The gap between ancient and modern experience proved smaller than anyone had imagined. Each new excavation revealed additional wonders that expanded understanding of Mesopotamian achievements. The royal cemetery at Ur uncovered artistic treasures that demonstrated sophisticated metalworking, jewelry making, and decorative techniques. The palace reliefs from Assyrian capitals revealed artistic programs that combined aesthetic beauty with political propaganda in ways that influenced imperial art throughout subsequent history. But perhaps most remarkably, the scientific and mathematical texts that emerged from temple libraries revealed intellectual achievements that had been completely forgotten. Babylonian mathematical methods were found to be more sophisticated than Greek techniques that had been considered the foundation of ancient mathematics. Astronomical observations proved to be more accurate than any made before the development of modern instruments. The medical texts that described surgical procedures, pharmaceutical preparations, and diagnostic techniques demonstrated scientific knowledge that often surpassed what was available in medieval Europe. Engineering manuals preserved construction methods that explained how ancient architects had created buildings whose ruins had puzzled investigators for centuries. Modern archaeology has revealed that Mesopotamian innovations continue to influence contemporary life in ways that most people never recognize. The urban planning principles that created the first cities established precedents that govern modern municipal development. The irrigation techniques that transformed wetlands into agricultural centers are being studied by engineers planning development projects in similar environments. NASA scientists, analyzing the challenges of establishing human settlements on Mars, have found that Mesopotamian irrigation methods offer models for managing water resources under conditions where engineering failures could mean catastrophe. The systematic approach to environmental management that enabled the first cities to survive in challenging conditions provides insights relevant to contemporary sustainability challenges. The legal principles established by Hammurabi's code continue to influence international law, while the administrative methods developed to govern diverse populations within single political systems offer models for managing multicultural societies. The diplomatic techniques that enabled peaceful relationships between different cultural groups remain relevant to contemporary international relations. But perhaps most profoundly, the literature that emerged from Mesopotamian cities continues to speak to universal human experiences that transcend historical and cultural boundaries. The Epic of Gilgamesh is read in universities throughout the world as literature that explores themes of friendship, mortality, and the search for meaning that remain as relevant today as they were 4,000 years ago. The poetry of Enheduanna, the world's first known author, is studied by scholars investigating the development of literary techniques and the role of women in ancient societies. Her hymns and prayers demonstrate spiritual insights that continue to inspire contemporary religious and philosophical thinking. The wisdom literature that preserved practical advice about human relationships, ethical behavior, and social responsibility offers guidance that remains applicable to modern challenges. Proverbs and instructions that were composed to help ancient people navigate urban life provide insights that contemporary readers find surprisingly relevant to their own experiences. The rediscovery of Mesopotamian civilization has fundamentally changed how we understand human development and cultural achievement. Before archaeological investigation revealed the scope of Mesopotamian innovations, the origins of civilization seemed to lie in classical Greece and Rome. Now we recognize that the foundations of urban life, written communication, systematic law, and literary expression were established in the cities between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. This recognition has created new appreciation for the sophistication of ancient achievements and the continuity of human experience across vast spans of time. The people who created the first cities faced challenges remarkably similar to those confronting contemporary urban planners. The authors who composed the first literature explored themes that continue to occupy modern writers. The scientists who made the first systematic observations of natural phenomena used methods that remain fundamental to contemporary research. As evening settles over the archaeological sites where ancient cities are slowly being uncovered, where modern scholars work to preserve and interpret the material remains of humanity's first urban experiment, the echoes of Babylon continue to resonate through time and space. In museum galleries, where cuneiform tablets are displayed alongside contemporary art, in university classrooms, where ancient literature is discussed alongside modern novels, in research laboratories, where ancient mathematical methods inform contemporary calculations, the achievements of Mesopotamian civilization remain vibrant and influential. The physical ruins of the great cities may lie buried beneath millennia of accumulated sand and debris, but the intellectual and cultural achievements they produced have achieved the immortality that Gilgamesh sought but could not find. What we create in hope, in beauty, in wonder, lives forever in the minds and hearts of those who encounter the preserved expressions of human creativity and wisdom. Under the eternal stars that witnessed the rise of the first cities, the development of writing, the creation of law, and the composition of literature that would endure across the ages, the land between two rivers continues to yield its secrets to archaeologists and scholars who recognize that understanding our past enriches our present and guides our future. Tomorrow will bring new discoveries, new insights, and new appreciation for the remarkable achievements of the people who first learned to live together in cities, to preserve thoughts in writing, to govern according to law, and to find meaning in existence through stories that transform individual experience into universal truth. But tonight, in the shadow of tells that conceal the remains of humanity's greatest urban achievements, in the silence of deserts that once echoed with the voices of the world's first poets, in the museums and libraries where ancient wisdom continues to speak to contemporary concerns, Mesopotamian civilization lives on, not as historical curiosity but as living heritage that continues to shape human understanding and aspiration. The echoes of Babylon will resonate as long as human beings wonder about their origins, their possibilities, and their destiny. The voices that first spoke from clay tablets continue to whisper truths that illuminate the path forward, proving that what we create in hope, in beauty, in wonder, truly does live forever. A journey through the corridors of time is complete. From climate refugees who transformed wetlands into gardens, through the rise and fall of empires, to modern archaeologists who restore ancient voices to the world, we have witnessed humanity's greatest transformation. The legacy of Mesopotamia lives on in every city street, every written word, every law that protects the weak, every story that gives meaning to existence. Between two rivers in ancient Iraq, civilization began, and its echoes will resonate until the end of time.